we're watching the last truly great NFL season. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't agree that there is that what this year says. Supposedly the year they're saying is 2017, but I'm here to tell you right now that can't be true. There is no way that 2017 is the last good NFL season. But let's see. If I had to pick the last good year, I would say right before COVID. That season, KC, San Francisco, in the Super Bowl 54, that's probably the last really good one, I think. But hey, that Super Bowl 56 that year was really good too. I think that's 21-22. That was a really good season. That was the year Aaron Rodgers won his last MVP. It was him versus Brady for the MVP, and there was a huge debate about who should win it. And that was the year the Rams and the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. I think that was the last good year. But let's see what they say. They might disagree.
The year is 2017. The Cleveland Browns had just spent the first overall pick on generational Texas A&M pass rusher Myles Garrett, banking on him to become the franchise cornerstone they'd been searching for. Chicago stunned the football world at number 2, trading up just one spot to take Mitch Trubisky, a quarterback with only 13 college starts. The move was met with raised eyebrows, especially with Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes still on the board. Watson, the proven winner from Clemson, went 12th to Houston, while Kansas City aggressively jumped to grab Mahomes at number 10, a raw project gunslinger compared to Jay Cutler, who many figured would sit for a year or even longer. Christian McCaffrey, taken 8th by Carolina, was the ultimate Swiss Army knife who could be the future of the running back position. And at number 4...
Okay. First off. Are we talking about the greatest season, or are we talking about the greatest draft? Because if we're talking about the greatest draft of the last 10 years, yeah, this would be it. But, I mean, come on. It's more than just a draft. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe there's more to go here.
Or the Jaguars grabbed LSU sledgehammer Leonard Fournette, hoping he would bring an old-school toughness to a franchise lacking identity. Those rookies, along with names like T.J. Watt, George Kittle, Cooper Kupp, and Alvin Kamara, would go on to define the season and the next decade. But no matter what happened at the draft, all eyes turned to New England once summer hit. The Patriots were coming off the most famous comeback in NFL history, and the preseason narrative was that this might be the best team Bill Belichick ever had. Tom Brady was 40, but still playing at an MVP level.
Yep.
Rob Gronkowski was back and healthy. The Patriots had added deep threat Brandon Cooks, signed Stephon Gilmore to pair with Malcolm Butler, and seemed to have patched every hole. Vegas made them heavy Super Bowl favorites, and some even debated whether New England could actually go 19-0. They opened at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, who
I remember this.
didn't get the memo regarding how unbeatable New England was supposed to be. Rookie running back Kareem Hunt, who fumbled on his very first carry, rebounded with one of the greatest debuts ever, nearly 250 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Alex Smith suddenly looked like Joe Montana, carving up the Patriots for 368 yards and 4 scores, and the Chiefs routed the Patriots 42-27, silencing the crowd and making those Super Bowl odds look questionable at best. But Aaron Rodgers reminded everyone why he was considered the league's most talented quarterback. Green Bay started 3-1, with Rodgers orchestrating clutch drives to get the Packers out of the gates hot.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think there's already the flaw, right? Yeah, this was a really highly anticipated season for the Patriots, but to say it was the most talented team Bill Belichick ever coached, I think that's a huge overreaction. But yeah, a lot of the rookie talent was coming in at this time, but I'm sticking on the same idea. Like, it's the draft. If you're talking about the most talented draft last 10 years, this would absolutely be it. But if you're talking the best season, there was a lot of good competition, but not at the level of some other seasons I've seen. I mean, it's a unique one, to say the least.
Week 3 against the Bengals,
it's a unique
he threw
take.
A last-minute game-tying strike to Jordy Nelson, then set them up to win in overtime on a field goal with another dart. At the end of September, he looked like the MVP favorite. The Falcons, meanwhile, were desperate to prove 28-3 hadn't broken them. Just half a year after blowing the most infamous lead in Super Bowl history, Atlanta opened their sparkling new stadium on a mission. They started 3-0, including a convincing Sunday Night Football win over Green Bay, where their defense harassed Rodgers. The meltdown still loomed in the background, but the Falcons looked like they were on a revenge tour.
The Falcons team was ridiculous,
the
too.
Raiders had as much preseason hype as anyone. Derek Carr had just become the league's highest-paid player. Amari Cooper was expected to ascend into the elite tier.
I'm sorry. I'm still on this whole idea that Derek Carr was at one point the highest paid player in the NFL. It still blows my mind. I can't believe I actually have to say those words with a straight face. Like, how often am I going to sit here and have to hear those words? It's not every day you hear that about a player, that he was a highest paid player and he retired maybe 8 years after this, and they never won anything. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
And Marshawn Lynch came out of retirement to run behind one of the league's best offensive lines.
That's right.
And for 2 weeks, the hype was justified. Oakland started 2-0, but then reality hit. A loss to Washington in prime time exposed their toothless defense, and the Raiders closed the month on a 2-game skid. In Pittsburgh, the Killer Bees of Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell were the league's most unstoppable trio. Brown was as dominant as ever, but Bell looked a bit sluggish after skipping training camp in a contract dispute. Still, Pittsburgh finished the month 3-1.
I remember
despite not
that.
being the well-oiled machine fans expected. But the Vikings had major quarterback issues. Sam Bradford, fresh off a magnificent Week 1 performance, went down with a knee injury, and suddenly journeyman Case Keenum was under center. Nobody expected much from him, but he kept the Vikings afloat, managing games and leaning on a defense loaded with playmakers like Harrison Smith and Everson Griffin. By the end of September, Minnesota was 2-2, but nobody knew yet that Keenum would become the face of one of the league's most improbable runs. Meanwhile, the New York Giants were imploding. A playoff team just the year before, they opened 0-4 and looked hopeless. Odell Beckham Jr. was battling injuries, and Eli Manning was washed up.
To say washed up like that is crazy. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I totally don't agree with that. I don't agree that he was washed up. Statistically, Manning still had another year or two left. I think he did. I think 2018 is probably the year I would have argued maybe he should have started contemplating retirement. But he didn't look washed up. Like that's a little bold to say. Eli was still an icon, and he was still good at football. So I don't think that's a fair statement to make. But the injuries part, yeah, that definitely played a role. But you know what New York fans would say? It's that freaking boat picture. That boat picture is what did it to them.
Head coach Ben McAdoo had no answers and began to lose the locker room. And unfortunately, the Colts had a better shot at the number 1 pick than they did at a playoff spot.
Scott
Andrew Luck
Tolzien
was missing the entire season with a shoulder injury. But
Poor
no one
Luck.
was worse than Cleveland. They started 0-4, the beginning of what would be a historic season for all the wrong reasons for Hugh Jackson. And overshadowing all of it was the anthem controversy.
How many of y'all remember Deshaun Kaiser, that one season in Cleveland? He didn't look like horrific, but he was definitely not going to be lasting in the league much longer. I think he only had one more year after that, and it was with Green Bay. I think that was it, and then he was out of the league. But that's still crazy. But yeah, the anthem controversy, that was a huge issue for years.
In late September, President Trump's comments criticizing NFL players reignited tensions around protests during the national anthem, even calling for them to be released. Football season's finally here, and I've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook.
I don't care. Let's get the sponsors out of the way, please. October time.
October's most exciting story took place in Houston. After flashing in September, Deshaun Watson exploded in October. He threw 5 touchdowns against Kansas City, then walked into Seattle and went blow for blow with Russell Wilson in one of the greatest rookie performances in NFL history. I
just realized, was that Will Fuller?
Story took place in Houston. After flashing in September, Deshaun Watson exploded in October. He threw
that's Will Fuller. I saw Lamar Miller in the backfield. I think I just saw Owen Daniels at tight end. Yo, that is crazy how long ago this is. That's 8 years.
5 touchdowns against
Yo,
Kansas
that's
City,
crazy.
Then walked into Seattle and went blow for blow with Russell Wilson in one of the greatest rookie performances in NFL history. Watson threw for over 400 yards and 4 scores.
Texans Watson was such a
attacking the
problem.
Legion of Boom, while Wilson countered with late-game heroics to steal the win. But Watson looked like a no-doubt future MVP and face of the league. While Philadelphia was also rising, Carson Wentz had the Eagles looking like the best team in football by the end of October. He threw 3 touchdowns and a statement win over Carolina on Thursday Night Football, then 4 touchdowns as he ripped apart Washington in prime time the very next week.
They were seriously talking about Carson Wentz actually being the MVP that year. That's how good he was. He was having that good of a year that they were talking about him being an MVP. He was terrifying to watch. He was so lethal in Philly that year. So lethal. You just knew the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl with him. You just knew it.
By Halloween, the Eagles were 7-1. riding a 6-game winning streak, and Wentz was the MVP frontrunner. But Philly wasn't the only NFC surprise. After years of mediocrity, the Rams had come alive under 31-year-old head coach Sean McVay.
Go.
Jared Goff looked like a real quarterback thanks to a real head coach. Todd Gurley was back to his dominant 2015
Pre-arthritis.
form, and the Rams were scoring points at a rate the franchise had not seen since the greatest show on turf. By the end of October, they sat at second place in the NFC West, a huge improvement for a team that had gone 4-12 with the league's lowest scoring offense in 2016.
Those offenses those uniforms were so ugly back then.
Was pandemonium. The Falcons, who had started hot in September, shrunk in October, losing 3 straight, including a Super Bowl rematch against the Patriots where they didn't score until the fourth quarter.
Yep.
The Saints went the other direction, however, catching fire and going on what would eventually be an 8-game win streak, fueled by Drew Brees' efficiency, a resurgent defense, and the breakout of rookies Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, who both looked like they were born to play in Sean Payton's offense.
Oh, yeah.
And in Carolina, Cam Newton was as unpredictable as ever, alternating between good and bad games.
This is something I remember because growing up a Buccaneers fan, I'm going to tell you the truth. Drew Brees, I always loved and respected him as a quarterback. He was one of my favorite to watch. I hated playing him, but he was such an amazing QB. Cam Newton was the first QB I watched where I genuinely had a problem with him. And here's the funny thing. The only problem I had with Newton is I felt like he was very good at certain things, and then there were times he made some really bad decisions and cost his teams winning opportunities. And this season right here, 2017, is where that really came to a head because he was an MVP in 2015, and just a couple years later, it all went down the drain. And this is kind of where the injuries start setting in and taking over, so I felt really bad for him at this point. But you could start telling that things were going off the rails in Carolina here, and this is where the whole controversy of benching him for somebody else, then letting him go, then bringing him back started, and Ron Rivera getting fired. It became a whole thing. So it all started with this season right here.
But the defense kept the Panthers squarely in the playoff hunt. In the AFC, the Chiefs
Kuechly, what a
5-0,
monster.
with Kareem Hunt running wild. But October exposed their flaws, and Kansas City dropped 2 straight to fall back to the pack. Further west, the Chargers were the best bad team in football. They opened the season 0-4, with 3 losses coming by a single score. But in October, they turned things around. Phillip Rivers and a defense powered by Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram brought them back to respectability.
Yo, Melvin Ingram, and if y'all were too young to remember that, and it's crazy I'm saying that, it's only 8 years ago, but Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa at one point were like one of the most terrifying duos to face when it came to stopping the run and like in terms of pass rush. Those two could be in the backfield within 2 seconds. It was really hard to stop them. In their primes, they were impossible to beat. You couldn't keep them out of the pocket. It was unbelievable.
Even if they were still just 3-5. But the Cowboys, 1 year removed from a magical 13-3 season, quickly discovered how much harder year 2 can be. Ezekiel Elliott's suspension saga became the story of the fall, a legal tug-of-war that dragged on week after week. Even when he played, the shadow of the looming suspension hung over Dallas like a dark cloud.
Yes, it did.
In October, the Cowboys dropped 2 straight, including a shootout with Aaron Rodgers. By the end of the month,
these games
Dallas
are always
was
so good.
4-3, still alive but headed for a mediocre season. However, the biggest pieces of news in October were Odell Beckham suffering a season-ending ankle injury and Vikings linebacker Aaron Barr breaking Aaron Rodgers' collarbone. Whether backup QB
that's right.
water for long enough for Rodgers to return with a shot at the playoffs was a major question.
That was where things got risky. I think Brett Hundley had to take over at one point and start.
November began with a cruel twist of fate for Houston, as Deshaun Watson tore his ACL in practice.
Yo, I do remember that. Oh, that was right. Oh, man. I forgot who filled in. Was it Savage? Mallet? Who was it?
Short what might have been the greatest rookie season ever. But by the time Thanksgiving hit, Carson Wentz and the Eagles were obliterating opponents. In Week 9, they hammered the Broncos 51-23.
They were
with
incredible.
Wentz tossing 4 touchdowns and making Denver's defense look helpless.
Yep.
Against Dallas in Week 11, Wentz started slow, but a second-half avalanche buried the Cowboys 37-9 in Jerry World. After that, they beat Chicago 31-3 to reach a 10-1 record, riding a 9-game win streak. And Wentz was the runaway MVP favorite. Philadelphia wasn't just the NFC's top seed. They were the scariest team in all of football.
Told
but
you.
The Vikings weren't far behind. Case Keenum was playing more like a franchise quarterback than a backup.
He was.
November, he shredded Washington for 4 touchdowns and kept Minnesota rolling with wins over the Rams.
Who did he catch that over? Who did he catch that over, guys? Let's see who he caught that over.
But the Vikings weren't far behind.
Who did Stephon Diggs beat on that play? Who did Thielen beat on that one? Let's catch a number, shall we? Y'all know who that is, right? I hope y'all know who that is, number 24. I didn't think I was going to see him on here. Josh Norman, the one-season wonder. No, he really wasn't. He had a couple good seasons, but, like, I don't know what it was. That last season in Carolina, he was really good. Got him a really good contract in Washington where he was good the first year, and then that fall-off started. Oh, my gosh. He got beat bad on this one. This was a really bad game for him. I remember this.
Minnesota rolling.
That's when people started saying Norman was washed.
With Adam Thielen breaking out as an all-pro receiver, Stephon Diggs as his partner in crime, and the league's top defense, the Vikings ripped off 7 straight wins to this point and finished the month 9-2.
It was the most improbable run I'd ever seen.
No longer seemed like a fantasy. And in New Orleans, the Saints running back duo of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara became about as formidable a backfield duo as the league had seen. And in Week 11,
let's call that Arm and Hammer.
The greatest comebacks of the year, storming back from 15 down against Washington to win in overtime. This looked like the most balanced team Drew Brees had ever.
Because Mark Ingram could lay the hammer down, and Kamara, he's the arm,
they were legit
stiff arm.
Jared Goff continued to grow in confidence. Todd Gurley was in the thick of the MVP race, and Aaron Donald was wrecking pockets every Sunday on his way to Defensive Player of the Year.
Miss you every day, Bubba. We miss you.
The Vikings, but bounced back with a big win over the Saints. At 8-3, the Rams were the new kings of the NFC West. Seattle, though, was not going quietly. Russell Wilson turned November into his own personal...
Can we all acknowledge now, because it's been long enough, can we all admit that these uniforms were absolutely terrible? The Seahawks unis, they literally blend into the field a little bit. It's like an ugly green highlighter mixed with the yellow highlighter. It just hurts the eyes. Can we at least admit that and not lie about it? Because really, this just wasn't... These were not good unis in the slightest. This was terrible. Let's be 100% clear. The Seahawks unis they use every week are great. These are awful. But the ones I'm going to be wearing this Sunday are going to be really good, too. I love the throwbacks. The blue ones, oh, they're beautiful. They wear more of those. I might buy one. I might. I like good unis. I respect really nice uniforms. Even the Cardinals' old stuff was nice. I like the blackout unis.
MVP campaign, accounting for nearly all of the Seahawks offense while his team around him fell apart. Richard Sherman tore his Achilles, Cam Chancellor was sidelined with a neck injury, and the Legion of Boom was effectively no more. But Wilson kept them alive, dragging Seattle to a 7-4 record by the end of the month.
And that was a miracle in itself because that defense was in shambles and we never thought that offense would figure it out.
Off their Week 1 stumble and by November looked as ruthless as ever. Brady threw 4 touchdowns against Miami in Week 12, and they ended the month 9-2, riding a 7-game win streak. And right behind them were the Steelers. After a merely decent start to the year, they caught fire in November, with Big Ben finding his rhythm and Le'Veon and AB playing like the league's 2 most dangerous weapons. Brown's 3-touchdown demolition of Tennessee on Thursday night and his game-winning catch against Green Bay were reminders that no receiver in the NFL was better.
One of the greatest trios in the 2010s. Nobody, and I mean no team, you could argue wall with this. And if you want to, argue in the comments or in the chat. Go right ahead. I don't think there was a trio in the 2010s that was better than Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell. From 2010 to 2020, I can't name a trio that was better. One receiving target, a QB, and a running back. Whether that's a receiver or a tight end, doesn't matter. But QB, receiver/tight end, and running back. There was not one group that was better than the Steelers. In their prime, this was the best team ever on the field. You could not stop this offense. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben. This was like Big Ben's last major statistical year. In the 2010s, you can't find one better than this. I'm calling it now. And if you do, we could gladly argue it.
Pittsburgh finished November 9-2 as well, putting them on a collision course with New England in December. But not every AFC team was on the rise. The Chiefs, who had started 5-0, regressed. They lost 5 of 6 from mid-October to
Yep,
the end
they
of
struggled.
November, including an embarrassing defeat to the lowly Giants. And Kansas City looked like a shell of the team that had shocked New England on opening night. The Jaguars, on the other hand, were one of the stories of the season. Powered
Yep.
by their suffocating defense and rookie Leonard Fournette,
I miss this
Jacksonville
team.
ended November tied for the AFC South lead at 7-4
This
with
was good
Tennessee.
football right here.
They weren't pretty. Blake Bortles was still Blake Bortles, but nobody wanted to see the Saxonville defense in January.
I missed that. I
Elsewhere,
missed
the
those
Bills
helmets.
provided comic relief. At 5-4, they benched Tyrod Taylor for rookie Nathan Peterman.
Nathan Peterman! Yes, I wanted this conversation in here. I miss him too. I think he's still in the league somewhere. He's on somebody's practice squad, but oh my gosh. The 4-interception first half. Oh, Buffalo was in shambles back
And
then.
the result was 5 interceptions in one half against the Chargers.
Five.
One of the ugliest quarterback performances in NFL history. Sean McDermott had no choice but to turn back to Taylor, and Buffalo finished the month 6-5.
Let
Still
Tyrod
in the
work.
playoff picture. And the Giants, already a disaster, benched Eli Manning in favor of Geno Smith. An unpopular move that would soon prove consequential for Ben McAdoo.
Yeah, that was a really bad, it goes back to what I said. Because at that point, Eli had the longest consecutive game started streak for a QB. But then, that decision happens. And I thought they were great. I thought they were a great team. They really were. And not a great team, but I thought that Eli still was good. Now, he had a lot in the tank. But to bench him at that point was just a discredit to everything he'd done for the Giants organization. So I felt really bad for him. After that season, maybe retirement would have been on the table, but at that point, he was still a good QB that was just struggling with all the injuries and just how rough the team had been that year. So I felt bad.
During the December stretch run, Carson Wentz and the Eagles walked into the Coliseum in Week 14 for a showdown with the Rams.
Oh, what a
Possible
good
NFC
matchup this was.
Championship preview. Wentz threw 4 touchdowns, pushing his season total to a league-high 33. But on a scramble toward the goal line, he tore his ACL, ending the season of the MVP favorite and finished the league's hottest team. Nick Foles took over, and while Philly finished 13-3 with the NFC's top seed, nobody outside of Philadelphia believed they could actually finish the job.
Go.
Minnesota rode Case Keenum's improbable hot streak to the conference's 2nd seed. They ripped off wins over the Falcons, Bengals, and Packers, also finishing 13-3. The Saints and Panthers also made their push. New Orleans leaned on Kamara and Ingram to finish 11-5, sweeping Carolina in the regular season and reclaiming the NFC South.
Yep,
The
they
Panthers
did.
also reached 11 wins, however, and the Falcons got over their October lull to finish 10-6, ensuring 3 teams from the NFC South made the playoffs.
And who was the one that didn't make it? You already know my Buccaneers didn't make it. Yeah, that was a rough year with Winston. That was a rough year. I don't want to talk about that one.
The Rams clinched the NFC West with a 42-7 demolition of the Seahawks in Week 15, and Todd Gurley went nuclear in December, scoring 8 touchdowns in the final 3 games and running away with Offensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
In the AFC,
Gurley
in
was
Week 15,
amazing.
The Patriots and Steelers met in Pittsburgh in what was a potential AFC title game. The Steelers were poised for a statement win after a late Juju Smith.
Was this the Jesse
run
James
set them up
game?
At the goal line. Ben Roethlisberger hit Jesse James for what was the go-ahead
It
touchdown,
was.
only for replay to rule it incomplete. Another chapter in the NFL's confusing catch rule chronicles. 2 plays later, Roethlisberger threw a game-ending interception, and New England escaped with a 27-24 win. The victory gave the Patriots the inside track to the number 1 seed.
It did.
A path
It
they
did.
would not relinquish. The Steelers, though, still finished strong at 13-3, with Antonio Brown logging over 1,500 yards despite missing the final 2 games, and Le'Veon Bell adding nearly 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Behind them, Jacksonville held off Tennessee and clinched the AFC South with a 10-6 record, their first playoff berth in a decade.
Jalen Ramsey
And the
was
Chiefs,
a
after their
machine.
mid-season rough stretch, went 4-1 in December to finish 10-6.
I miss him.
With Kareem Hunt winning the rushing title and Tyreek Hill establishing himself as one of the top receivers in the game.
Yeah, that was Tyreek Hill's first major breakout year, and then, people just associate him with Patrick Mahomes as to his breakout, but he did have a really good year before that with Alex Smith. He did, and Kareem Hunt having that breakout year also the year before that with Alex Smith. Oh my gosh, people forget how loaded that offense was. They were just disgustingly good.
And the Bills, even after the Nathan Peterman fiasco, clawed their way to 9-7 and secured a wild card with their Week 17 win over the Dolphins.
Tyrod was pretty good,
The
man.
Chargers, despite going 9-3 over their final 12 games, fell just short. They would have been a difficult matchup for anyone. But that
Melvin
0-4
Gordon,
start
I
was
miss him
just too
too.
much to
He was
overcome.
very good. I
The
loved him in
Ravens,
college.
meanwhile, had their playoff dreams crushed in the cruelest fashion. At
I was at a
96,
friend's house when this
17, they only
happened.
needed to beat the Bengals at home. But Andy Dalton's fourth down touchdown to Tyler Boyd stunned Baltimore and allowed the Bills into the postseason for the first time since 1999.
Cincinnati didn't have to
As
win
for
that
the
game, but
league's
they did it anyway.
disappointments, The Browns went a historic 0-16. The Giants fired Ben McAdoo after his Eli
Deserved.
Manning benching,
Deserved.
and the Raiders limped to 6-10, with Derek Carr playing injured and Amari Cooper unable to catch a cold, costing Jack Del Rio his job as rumors
I like
swirled
Jack
about
Del
John
Rio
Gruden's
too. It was a
return.
shame that they had to
And in
fire him
Green
so
Bay,
prematurely.
Aaron Rodgers' brief December return ultimately was not enough to save
Yup.
a lost season.
They tried
While
to
the Lions also hung around all year, but missed
They
the
tried to
playoffs
salvage
at
their way back, and then the
9-7
Lions
despite
were just
1,000
outsiders
yard
here.
seasons from both Marvin Jones and Golden Tate. By the time December ended, the field was set. The Eagles were wounded, but still the NFC's top seed.
Yep.
The Vikings, Saints, Panthers, and Rams all believed they had a shot, and in the AFC, the Patriots and Steelers looked destined for another clash, while the Jaguars and Chiefs lurked as threatening wildcards.
Think about that. The Chiefs are 1 point threatening wild cards. They weren't even anything more than that.
Wildcard weekend kicked things off with a whimper in Jacksonville. The Jaguars hosted the Bills in Buffalo's first playoff
Oh,
game
they
this
made
century.
Buffalo hurt
The
in this game.
itself was expectedly ugly. Blake Bortles threw for just 87 yards, unable to complete even
It
the
was an
easiest
ugly
of
game.
passes, but he scrambled for 88 on the ground, doing just enough to win 10-3. The Jags advanced while Buffalo's season ended with Tyrod Taylor concussed and
Yep.
Nathan Peterman poetically throwing the final interception of their season to Jalen Ramsey. In Kansas
Made
City,
sense.
the Chiefs
Made
hosted the
sense.
Titans.
They didn't have a backup.
Alex Smith and Kareem Hunt stormed out to a 21-3 halftime lead.
Yes,
but
they
in
did.
the second half, Derrick Henry took over.
Ah, the
second-year
emergence of
back
Derrick
pounded
Henry.
Kansas City for 156 yards.
I miss
Marcus
those unis for them.
Mariota authored one of the strangest plays in NFL history, throwing a touchdown pass to himself.
Oh,
after
yeah, he
six
caught his
balls
own
batted back
pass.
into
That
his
was
hands.
one of my
The
favorite
Titans
plays
stunned the
ever
Chiefs
from Mariota.
22-21, completing yet another
Huge what-if
January
story.
collapse for
If he didn't
Kansas
go to
City
Tennessee.
and spelling the end of Alex Smith's run as their starter. In the NFC, Atlanta walked into Los Angeles and bullied the Rams. Julio Jones scored.
Yep,
and the
they weren't
Falcons'
ready yet.
defense Shut down Todd Gurley.
Those
and
Rams
Jared
were not
Goff.
ready.
The Rams had been the darlings of the regular season, but their playoff inexperience showed in a 26-13 defeat.
Exactly.
The other wild card game was more competitive. The Saints took down the Panthers 31-26, as Drew Brees threw for 376 yards, hitting Michael Thomas
Drew Brees
and
was
Ted Ginn
still
for big
on
plays.
his.
Carolina
Oh,
fought
he was
to the
still
end, but
in
Cam
such a
Newton's
good
last
way
drive
at this
stalled,
point.
and the Saints advanced to set up a divisional match with Minnesota, which was when these playoffs truly turned unforgettable. In Foxborough, the Titans' run met reality as the Patriots beat them 35-14.
Oh yeah, the
with
Patriots
Brady
absolutely
throwing 3
smothered them
touchdowns.
in this
And
game.
the Steelers had spent the weeks prior dreaming of getting revenge against New England in the AFC Championship. But with that distraction,
Only for the
overlooked
Jaguars to
Jacksonville.
spoil that.
The Jags marched into Heinz Field and dropped 45 points on one of the league's best defenses. Leonard Fournette ran for 3 touchdowns, including a leaping score
Why
to
do I
set the
remember
tone
some of
early.
these players?
Blake Bortles, mocked all season, played mistake-free football. Ben Roethlisberger threw for 469 yards and 5 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough as the Steelers fell 45-42 in a shootout nobody expected. The Jags, of all teams, were headed to the AFC title game. In the NFC, the Falcons traveled to Philadelphia. Most assumed Philly's season had
This was a
effectively
pretty
ended
good
when
game.
Carson Wentz tore his ACL in December, and this was by no means a pretty game for Philadelphia.
Atlanta.
But late in the
Oh
fourth
man,
quarter, with Philly leading 15-10, Matt Ryan took the Falcons down to the red zone.
they were
On
so
fourth and goal,
close.
he rolled
That
right
defense
across
did
the
its job in
pass
the
for
end.
Julio Jones in the corner of the end zone, incomplete.
Just
The Eagles
it was
survived,
all. It
sending
all.
their
Honestly,
underdog
Julio
Philly
could have
to the
caught that
NFC
too.
Championship.
Just got his
And then
hands up
came
there
the
late.
Game of the year. The Saints and Vikings staged an instant clash.
This is the greatest game I ever watched right here. This is by far the greatest football game I ever watched. You want to argue? Go ahead and argue. This was the greatest football game I ever watched.
Nothing at halftime, but Breeze rallied the Saints, throwing 3 second-half touchdowns to take the lead. And with time running out, the Saints were up 24-23.
That comeback was
one play away
amazing.
From the NFC Championship. Then, on 3rd and 10 from his own 39, Keenum lofted a sideline throw to Stephon Diggs. Saints safety Marcus Williams whiffed on the tackle. Diggs spun upright and sprinted 30 more yards untouched into the end zone as time expired.
Diggs,
The Vikings have pulled
sideline,
off one of the most
touchdown,
improbable finishes in NFL
unbelievable.
history, now known as
Vikings
the
win it.
Minneapolis Miracle, advancing them
One of
to
the greatest
NFC Championship
football calls
in
ever
Philly.
heard.
And Championship Sunday brought 2 very different games. For 3 quarters in Foxborough, Jacksonville
man,
looked
this
like the better
game.
team. The Jags led the Pats 20-10 in the fourth quarter and should have clinched the game on a Miles Jack forced fumble and recovery that he could have ran in for a touchdown, but he was wrongfully ruled down. Instead, Tom
Wait. Remember this part.
For a touchdown, but he was wrongfully ruled down.
He was wrongfully ruled down. I will say it to this day, the Jaguars should have won this game. The Patriots should have never been in that Super Bowl with that one play.
And should have clinched the game on a Miles Jack forced fumble and recovery that he could have ran in for a touchdown, but he was wrongfully ruled down. Instead, Tom Brady did what Tom Brady does. Playing with stitches in his throwing hand, he engineered 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives, hitting Danny Amendola twice, including a toe-tap masterpiece in the back of the end zone. New England survived 24-20, denying Jacksonville the upset of the year. In Philadelphia, the NFC title game was going to be an easy
I've always felt bad for Jacksonville. That was their year to go to the Super Bowl. That was the year.
Minnesota an early 7-0 lead. The Eagles went off for 38 unanswered points. Foles was sensational, throwing for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He was a monster.
A bomb to Alshon Jeffrey that set the Link on fire. Philadelphia crushed Minnesota 38-7, punching their ticket to the Super Bowl for the first time.
I would have loved to have seen Jaguars-Vikings, but this was still not a bad matchup. This was a great game.
The 2017 season built to one of the most unlikely matchups imaginable. The defending champion New England
was that Diddy?
Built to one of the most unlikely matchups imaginable.
Get this pedophile off my screen.
The defending champion New England Patriots, led by MVP Tom Brady, the dynasty that had ruled the league for nearly 2 decades, against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Garrett Blunt, former Buck Goat.
MVP Carson Wentz, but by his backup Nick Foles. The Patriots were chasing
I will
their
never
6th
forget this
Lombardi
game.
Trophy, and the Eagles were chasing their first. From the opening kickoff, Foles came out fearless, hitting Alshon Jeffrey for another long touchdown in the first quarter, and Doug Peterson dialed up ballsy plays, refusing to be intimidated by Belichick. The Eagles racked up yards and points at will.
They
but
did.
Brady was playing arguably the best game of his career, keeping New England within striking distance every step of the way.
They were both playing
the
so
Patriots'
good.
Offense was clicking, but the defining moment was created by Philly just before halftime. Facing 4th and goal, Doug Peterson called the play that would live in Philadelphia lore forever. Foles slid out to the right and caught a pass from tight end Trey Burton uncovered in the end zone. A backup quarterback catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl against the greatest dynasty in NFL history.
Yep.
The Philly special not only won up the Patriots' failed trick play from earlier in the game, but it was also the moment you knew the Eagles were not just happy to have made it there. And
They were trying to win it all.
Defense became non-existent. Gronkowski hauled in a touchdown that gave the Pats a late fourth quarter lead, but Foles answered, facilitating a go-ahead drive capped off by a touchdown to Zach Ertz.
Yep.
Still, Brady had the ball with over 2 minutes left, down 38-33, so everyone in the world expected yet another Patriots comeback. Instead,
But Brandon Graham had other
broke through
words.
and stripped Brady, and Philadelphia had the break they so
He had other
desperately
plans.
needed. A late field goal extended the lead to 8, and when Brady's Hail Mary fell incomplete as time expired, the impossible became reality. Nick Foles, after nearly retiring just a year earlier, was named Super Bowl MVP, outdueling Brady in one of the all-time great shootouts, throwing for 373 yards and 3 touchdowns. The underdog mask came off, and Philadelphia celebrated the greatest night in its football history. A triumph decades in the making. Foles became a Philadelphia legend, and Doug Peterson's aggressive play calling earned him recognition as one of the league's best coaches.
Yep.
But the immediate aftermath was less kind to Philly.
Before we get to the immediate aftermath, I do want to acknowledge that Philly absolutely earned this. And the only reason I was happy with them winning was because, one, my guy LeGarrette Blount got to get another Super Bowl and didn't have to be with New England. And 2, Nick Foles absolutely deserved a Super Bowl championship. Same with Carson Wentz. They both deserved it. So I was just happy both of them came out with a championship in the end. So all of them. And this team really deserved it. I had no reason to not like Philly that year. Philly was a great team, great energy. I loved this Philly team. I didn't like the Philly team this past year. I didn't like this one. I think they played with a different kind of attitude than they did in this game. This game, I really wanted Philly to win. And I was happy with Philly winning. Last year, I was not happy with either team winning that game. But in the end, you know what? It is what it is.
Carson Wentz never regained his 2017 form. The following seasons brought injuries, regression, and eventually a trade out of Philly.
Yep.
Peterson's tenure unraveled within 3 years, and the team was dismantled piece by piece. For the Patriots, the loss was devastating but not fatal. Tom Brady had thrown for 505 yards and 3 touchdowns, arguably the best Super Bowl performance ever. Belichick was second-guessed for benching cornerback Malcolm Butler, who had been a Super Bowl hero 3 years earlier.
Yep, he was.
New England returned the very next year. So if you'd like to relive the rest of the 2010s, click here.
It was a really good video. It was really good. I still don't think it was the best NFL season. Like the last great one. I think there were other good ones. If you want to say the best since whatever Super Bowl it was, sure, I'll give you that. But I don't think it was the best, personally. I don't think it was the best one. I think there were better ones that we just never paid attention to, personally. But it's whatever. It's whatever. I really loved that 2019 season with the Chiefs and the Niners. I really liked the year when it was the Bengals and the Rams. Obviously, I'd say my Buccaneers year, but that was COVID year. And, I liked the way that season ended just because Brady went to Tampa. Nobody expected Tampa to do anything and to win a championship that year, and they won it anyway against an overpowered Chiefs team that was banged up going into that game. I just really liked that Bengals-Rams season. That was a really good year. There were so many good teams, so many challenging ones. You really couldn't pinpoint who was going to go to the Super Bowl and win it all because Lamar was playing great. The Ravens are playing good football. The Bengals are playing amazing football. The Chiefs are playing good football. The Bills are playing good football. All these teams are waking up, and it got super competitive in the AFC that year. And in the NFC, it was a similar story. The Rams were great. The Bucks were great. There were teams all the way around in that league, that conference, that were so good. So to say this was the last truly great season, I think it's a little bit of an overrated statement. I think the 2022 season was better than this one. But 2017 was the most unpredictable. That I could say. But this was a really good video. This was really good content, for sure.